Very good evening to all of you. Namaskar, and thank you for joining us on the special media briefing on the occasion of the conclusion of the first India Central Asia Summit that has been held a little while ago virtually with Honorable Prime Minister and his Central Asian counterparts. To give us a sense of the discussions and the outcomes, we have the privilege of having with us here today Srimati Reenat Sandhu, Secretary West in the Ministry of External Affairs. We are also joined here with by Dr. Adarsh Swaika, a Joint Secretary looking after Eurasia in the Ministry of External Affairs. Ma'am, I will first hand the floor over to you for your opening remarks, ma'am, and then we will have a lot of questions. We'll come to that.
Thank you. Namaskar and good evening. The first India Central Asia Summit in virtual format with the participation of our Prime Minister and presidents of the 5 Central Asian countries has just the first meeting of its at summit level. The timing of the meeting is of particular significance as we are celebrating the 30th anniversary of our diplomatic relations with the 5 Central Asian countries this year. It may be recalled that after Prime Minister's historic visit to all Central Asian countries in 2015, there has been a strong momentum in our relations with the Central Asian countries, both bilaterally and at multilateral level. There have been regular high-level exchanges since then with all the Central Asian countries. The inception of the India-Central Asia dialogue at the foreign ministers level in 2019, the third meeting of which was held in New Delhi from 18 to 20th December 2021, underlines the high importance that we attach to strengthening our cooperation with Central Asia, a region that is part of our extended neighborhood and with which India enjoys deep historical, cultural, and civilizational links. The participation of the secretaries of National Security Councils of Central Asian countries in the Regional Security Dialogue on Afghanistan in New Delhi in November last year underlined our common regional approach on Afghanistan. The first meeting of the India-Central Asia Summit held today is a culmination of our sustained diplomatic engagement with the Central Asian countries in recent years. The program of today's summit included opening remarks by all the leaders, followed by their statements on the main theme of the summit, which was taking India-Central Asia relations to new heights. Prime Minister gave the closing remarks. Altogether, the virtual summit lasted for around 1.5 hours. In the traditional spirit of friendship and mutual understanding, Prime Minister and the leaders of Central Asian countries reviewed the progress made in India-Central Asia relations during the past 3 decades since the establishment of diplomatic ties, discussed partnership at great heights in the coming years by enhancing cooperation across several areas. The leaders also had a candid exchange of views on regional and international issues of interest, especially the current regional security situation. Honorable Prime Minister underlined the importance of setting an ambitious agenda for our partnership, taking into account the changing global realities and aspirations of our youth. In this context, he suggested preparing a roadmap for the next 30 years, focusing on connectivity and cooperation in an integrated manner. An important outcome of the meeting today was the agreement among the leaders of India and Central Asian countries to hold summit-level meetings every 2 years. The next summit would accordingly be held in 2024. One of the key proposals made by the Honorable Prime Minister was to institutionalize the framework for India-Central Asia cooperation at a regional level and to include annual ministerial meetings of the foreign ministers, trade ministers, cultural ministers, and secretaries of security to strengthen cooperation in the areas of political and development partnership, trade and connectivity, culture and tourism, and security. He also proposed the setting up of an India Central Asia Center in New Delhi to serve as a secretariat for supporting this framework of cooperation. In the area of trade and economic cooperation, Honorable Prime Minister proposed organizing a roundtable on connectivity and energy cooperation, two very important aspects of our economic relations with Central Asia. Other proposals of India included establishment of separate forums for parliamentary exchanges, interactions between think tanks, chambers of commerce and universities of India and Central Asian countries. All these proposals were welcomed and supported by the leaders of the Central Asian countries. A joint declaration was adopted following the first meeting of the Central Asia Summit. It will soon be uploaded on the MEA website. I will mention a few highlights of the joint declaration here. India welcomed the interest of Central Asian countries to utilize the services of Shahid Beheshti Terminal at Chabahar Port in Iran and proposed the establishment of a joint working group on Chabahar Port, which was welcomed by the Central Asian countries. It was also agreed to set up an IT-enabled services task force to take forward cooperation in the area of e-governance, digitization, etc. The leaders agreed to continue close consultations on the and decided to establish a joint working group on senior official level. Joint counter-terrorism exercises will be held between India and interested Central Asian countries. India will host a 100-member youth delegation from the Central Asian countries every year to promote greater understanding. India will organize customized professional training programs for Central Asian diplomats and also provide additional training slots and scholarships in other areas to meet the requirements of Central Asian countries. India and Central Asian countries also agreed to celebrate the 30th anniversary of diplomatic relations by organizing various activities, including the issuance of joint postal stamps. We also agreed to give greater attention to cultural cooperation by hosting regular film festivals, promoting cooperation between museums, undertaking translation of literary works, digitization of manuscripts, academic research, and restoration work related to cultural heritage. To highlight our linguistic and spiritual linkages, we agreed to commission a dictionary of common words used in India and Central Asian countries and showcase a Buddhist exhibition in Central Asian countries. The evolving situation in Afghanistan and its impact on the security and stability of the region was discussed in detail. The leaders reiterated their strong support for a peaceful, secure, and stable Afghanistan. They also discussed the current humanitarian situation and decided to continue to provide immediate humanitarian assistance to the Afghan people. Let me conclude by saying that the first India-Central Asia Summit was symbolic of the importance the leaders attached to a comprehensive and enduring partnership between India and the Central Asian countries. It was also a reflection of the growing engagement between India and Central Asia, which are very much part of our extended neighborhood. We now look forward to implementing the understandings reached among the leaders today to further expand and strengthen India-Central Asia relations. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the very comprehensive overview of discussions today and the way forward. Expectedly, there are a large number of questions. most of whom actually are related around connectivity and how we can enhance our linkages with this important region. So let me take up some of these questions on connectivity. We have Parul Chandra asking whether the turmoil in Afghanistan has further hampered India's efforts to access the landlocked Central Asian nations, via Chabahar specifically, and what have been the discussions so far between Indian and 5 Central Asian nations on enhancing connectivity. We have Siddhant from Vion asking whether on Chabahar any joint plan for the Central Asian countries to use the port. We have Manish Jha from Business World asking whether the ongoing connectivity projects to Central Asia, is there anything beyond Chabahar? And it is linked with Afghanistan, of course, and it is understood that such crucial projects like INSTC are on hold because of the de facto recognition issue of Taliban government. Huma specifically asked about what is the status of INSTC. We have similar questions from Nilova Roy Chaudhary, as well as we have from Sridhar from Asian Age asking, in fact, a slight variation saying, does India see China as the primary competitor on connectivity initiatives with Central Asia? He mentions that 2 nations, Russia and Iran, that are key to New Delhi's our initiatives on Central Asia, are also close partners of Beijing. Similar question on that from Seema Guha from Outlook. And who also, Akhilesh Suman has asked, as far as economic cooperation between India and Central Asia is concerned, he claims that is badly affected due to land route not being provided by Pakistan. Will these countries, that is Central Asian countries, impress upon Imran Khan to change his position on giving land route to India and Central Asia through his territory? My mistake, Seema Guha has actually similar question on this. So I think, as you can see, ma'am, a lot of interest on connectivity, INSTC, Chabahar. So if I could hand over to you.
Thank you. Well, connectivity was one of the main issues of discussion with the Central Asian leaders today. The importance of Chabahar port was equally emphasized by all. As you know, Chabahar port has provided much needed sea access to the landlocked countries, including Afghanistan and Central Asia. Recently, it facilitated the delivery of humanitarian assistance, especially during COVID-19 pandemic. The leaders agreed to work together to use Chabahar port for connecting Central Asia with India and further South Asia, including setting up a working group on Chabahar. They have supported our proposal to include Chabahar within the INSTC framework. We already have a trilateral mechanism of India, Iran, Uzbekistan on the Chabahar port. Other Central Asian countries have also expressed interest in joining this initiative. The INSTC is a functional route through the Bandar Abbas port of Iran that further passes through Azerbaijan or alternatively through Caspian Sea to Russia. Usage of this route can reduce the time taken from 40 to 45 days to 20 to 25 days between India and Russia, as well as reduce costs by 30 to 40%. Given the landlocked nature of Central Asian countries and the lack of overland connectivity with India, there has been understandably a considerable emphasis on the need for promoting mutual connectivity to enhance trade and commerce between India and the Central Asian countries. Both Russia and Iran are key stakeholders and participants of the INSTC. It is in the interest of all member countries of the INSTC that there is greater utilization of this route. In addition, India is also a member of the Ashgabat Agreement that we joined in 2018 and which enables connectivity between Central Asia and the Persian Gulf. This also synchronizes with other transport corridors in the region, including the INSTC. India stands ready to plan, build, invest, and participate in connectivity projects based on the priorities of transparency, broad participation, local priorities, financial sustainability, and respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity of all countries. As regards the query on Pakistan, this is better addressed to the Central Asian countries.
Thank you, ma'am. As clearly as you mentioned, Afghanistan is an important part of this. So actually, we have some questions on Afghanistan itself, and I will read them out. We have Nainima from the print asking, was giving recognition to Taliban discussed at the summit, since some Central Asian countries are planning to do it soon, as per her. Siddhant from Vion asks, on Afghanistan, what was the general consensus in terms of inclusive government and recognizing the Taliban regime? And Akhilesh Suman from Sansad TV would like to know, given the situation in Afghanistan after the takeover by Taliban, how India and Central Asian countries are going to collaborate on security matters.
Thank you. Afghanistan is an important issue that concerns all of us and was discussed by the leaders today. In broader terms, we share the same concerns and share the same objectives. The outcome document of the Delhi Security Dialogue of November 2021 reflected the regional consensus on major issues of regional stability and security. Our common priorities include providing immediate humanitarian assistance, ensuring formation of a truly representative and inclusive government, combating terrorism and drug trafficking, and preserving the rights of women, children, and minorities. At the meeting today, the leaders agreed to continue close consultations on Afghanistan, on the situation there, and decided to establish a joint working group on Afghanistan at the senior officials level. India and Central Asian countries are committed to combating the menace of terrorism, extremism, and drug trafficking. Our security cooperation includes discussions and exchanges on all these matters.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to quick queries, a couple of them on China. We have Nainima from Print asking, has there been any discussion around increasing Chinese defense supplies to these countries, Central Asian countries, and did India raise any such concern? Siddhant from Vion wants to know how much discussion was on China, given that China has been involved in huge debt crisis in the region. Was there any mention of debt problem in the region caused by China, especially non-transparent infrastructure projects?
Well, India's long-standing and friendly relations with Central Asian countries are based on a strong foundation of deep historical, cultural, and civilizational links. They stand on their own merit. The focus of the summit was purely on further strengthening India-Central Asia partnership.
Ma'am, Siddhant from Vion wants to know, when is the next summit expected to happen? You had mentioned partly in your opening statement. I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you. All countries have agreed to hold the next summit once in 2 years. So we expect the next summit to take place in 2024. The details of which country will host the summit, these will be agreed subsequently through diplomatic channels.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, we have a query on this lines of credit. Sandeep Dikshit from Tribune wants to know, could you please name and give the breakup of the 4 projects worth $450 million that have been cleared under the $1 billion LOC? Also, is this credit line only for Uzbekistan or for entire Central Asia? If it is for the latter, is there a country level allocation?
So there are 2 separate lines of credit. One was announced for Uzbekistan exclusively in 2018 during the visit of President Mirziyoyev to India. Under this, 4 projects worth $448 million in the sectors of road, sewerage, and IT have been approved for implementation. The second line of credit is the USD $1 billion LOC announced in October 2020 during the second India Central Asia dialogue for all the 5 Central Asian countries.
Thank you, ma'am. We have a couple of queries regarding the TAPI project. Sandeep Dikshit wants to know whether we could brief him on progress in TAPI as an example of regional economic cooperation against the backdrop of External Affairs Minister's talks with his Turkmen counterpart, mentioned at the third Foreign Minister level India Central Asia dialogue last December, and reportedly in the discussions between Taliban and Turkmen envoy in Kabul on September 30th. Huma from Financial Express also wants to know whether TAPI was discussed with Turkmenistan, and this pipeline is being pushed again by Taliban during talks, as per her.
The president of Turkmenistan at the meeting today emphasized on the importance of the TAPI project. It is understood that discussions are ongoing at the level of consortium partners with respect to the business principles of this project.
Ma'am, moving on to specific cooperation with bilateral countries, there are a couple of questions. One is both actually from Huma. It says, what about our base in Tajikistan? Are we allowed to operate it? And also, did the space cooperation come up? And what is the status of KazSat-2R?
As you are aware, we have very good cooperation with most Central Asian countries in the area of security and defense. We have regular bilateral military exercises and capacity building programs. A unique experiment has been in terms of co-deployment of troops in peacekeeping. Space is also a promising area of cooperation given India's rapid strides in this domain. The discussions today were focused on regional cooperation with the Central Asian countries rather than purely on bilateral.
Ma'am, Akhilesh Suman from Sansad TV would like to know, saying, as the situation is tense in Ukraine and surrounding areas, what was the discussion between Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi and the Central Asian leaders on this issue?
Discussion on this topic did not come up during today's summit.
And ma'am, finally, a query from Munish Gupta from PIO TV, who emphasizes the importance, strategic importance of Central Asian region for India, and would like to know what concrete agreements and or action plans point to India as a vital strategic partner for these countries.
As he has rightly pointed out, India-Central Asia relations are extremely important, as I highlighted during my opening remarks. This year we are marking the 30th anniversary of our diplomatic relations. A lot has been achieved in the 3 decades, and we look forward to strengthening our partnership in future. And today's discussion centered around looking at a very ambitious agenda in this direction. This is why the institutionalization of the summit mechanism, the first of its kind between Central Asia and any country, is so important. A number of initiatives, plans, agreements in various sectors have been proposed and discussed. Our major focus is on trade and connectivity, development cooperation, including capacity building, security and defense, and most importantly, in culture and people-to-people contacts. The proposals announced by India shows the focus of our cooperation. Further details are available in the joint statement, which is available online.
Thank you very much, ma'am. That brings to the end of the questions that we have. We appreciate all of you joining in for this special briefing at the conclusion of the first India Central Asia Summit that just took place virtually. Prime Minister with his counterparts from Central Asian countries. I would like to thank you, ma'am, for your presence and for answering these questions at length. I'd also like to thank the presence of Dr. Adarsh Waika, Joint Secretary Eurasia in the Ministry of External Affairs, The joint declaration that Secretary Ma'am alluded to is being put up on our website and give you a lot more information about the discussions and the agreements and the way forward for cooperation between India and Central Asian countries. Thank you once again for joining us. Good evening. Namaskar.